So if you're a fan of the Toy Story franchise, then you've probably tried to rank the movies. It's something that I've seen quite a bit online, with people sharing their rank by simply listing numbers from worst to best. Of course, we love all the Toy Story movies and connect with different parts of each sequel. And this is a subjective topic, so there's a wide range of choices when it comes to ranking. So with that being said, this is my attempt to rank the Toy Story movies from worst to best. And I want to share that I enjoyed all of the Toy Story movies, and I kind of struggle with assigning the worst because they're all great. But this is something that I think will be fun to discuss. Before we get into that, I would love it if you could subscribe to this channel. One of my goals is to reach 1,000 subscribers. If you like this content, I would appreciate it if you could hit the subscribe button so I can continue to grow this community. At number 4 is Toy Story 4. To me, this one is a no-brainer. Toy Story 4 is the weakest out of all the movies, and actually it surprises me to find that some think it's the best. I enjoyed the evolution of Woody from Andy's favorite to lost toy, the reintroduction of Bo, and a few memorable scenes like Woody's last hurrah helping his kid, and of course, the very powerful ending. But rather than focus on the old characters that we know and love, Toy Story 4 introduced a batch of new ones who really, with the exception of Duke Kaboom and maybe Benson, weren't all that interesting. Buzz has a very small role with the inner voice thing, and the other toys, even smaller. You almost didn't even need them in the Winnebago. And then there's the character of Bonnie, who I don't really feel strongly about. I mean, we feel bad for her at school, but outside of that, I'm not really sure that there was a reason to really get behind her. And of course, the way that she treated Woody probably doesn't help things. I don't know, maybe they could have given us a reason to like her more. Overall, I came away wondering if the movie needed to even be made. I'm glad that it was because it did advance the story and the character development a bit, but I also feel that the trilogy ended about as perfect as possible with Toy Story 3. So again, I'll say that this was a great movie. I enjoyed it, but it's the weakest out of all the films in the Toy Story franchise. Now, here's where it gets tough. My choice for number 3 is Toy Story 2. This was such a good sequel, and if there was any way to follow up the original Toy Story, then this was it. We discovered the origins of Woody and Buzz and learned more about the loyalty that a toy has to its owner. And unlike Toy Story 4, the new characters that were introduced added to the overall movie. Jessie is probably the best example. She was a fun character with a memorable backstory that would further help establish that fear of abandonment from Toy Story. Instantly, she became the third most popular character, one that no doubt helped draw in female viewers to the movie. And then you have Pete the Prospector as the multi-dimensional toy villain. What makes him such a great character is that he's not really a bad guy, but facing the prospect of abandonment, he becomes selfish and manipulative right until the end. You also have a human villain with hardly any redeeming qualities, but his greedy actions help reinforce Woody's value as a vintage toy. He also brings some authentic elements of toy collecting, or so I've heard. And finally, we learned a lot about Buzz's origin by introducing his arch-nemesis Zurg, who makes a brief but memorable appearance. From start to finish, this is a great sequel, and if you rank this movie higher, then I would completely understand. Now on to number 2, and that is Toy Story. In most cases, it's rare that a sequel is better than the original movie, but in my opinion, Toy Story was the second best movie out of the series. But with that being said, this is still one of my favorite films. I think that this movie is sometimes a victim of recency bias. People remember the more recent movies and forget about this gem from over 25 years ago. They forget the context surrounding this movie, focusing in on some of the more recent films. But for 1995, this was just an amazing film in so many ways. Everything from computer animation to writing to character development, just to name a few. But what stands out for me is that the animators could make what seemingly appears to be a children's film relatable to not just kids but also adults and people of all ages. My take is that the theme of toys takes everyone back to a time when they were children, that nostalgic period when times were carefree, fun, and simple. But you quickly realize that Toy Story is more than just about toys. It's really about feelings of jealousy, vulnerability, disappointment, and eventually hope. emotions we all encounter as we get older. We see these emotions on full display through the personal journeys of Buzz and Woody, which intertwine at the end for one memorable finale. The dynamic between these two polar opposite characters is fantastic throughout. Who would have guessed that this film would turn into a multi-billion-dollar property that would essentially spawn an entire new genre for animated film? And still, as great as impactful as this film was, I still think there's a better one. And that film is Toy Story 3. Toy Story 3 has to be one of my favorite movies of all time, and I think that this film is better than the original and the other two films in the series. In fact, it's the most perfect way to end a series of films that I've ever seen. The theme of this film was growing old and change, and it's immediately established in the beginning as we see Andy seemingly grow right before our eyes. In the opening scene, we're introduced to a time when life was perfect in Andy's bedroom, but moments later we're smacked with the reality of change, as only the core group of toys have survived, and they've been neglected for years. And it's that theme of change that's prevalent throughout. And in our own lives, what happens when there's change? We tend to push back against it, just like Woody did, until we finally embrace it. What I really liked about this film is that it flirted with the mortality of these characters. This is reinforced with the dynamic villain, the evil Lotso Huggenbear, who uses fear-mongering tactics to keep the toys in line. Unlike other villains in the series, he's evil right up until the end. And the final sequences in the movie are spectacular and bursting with emotion, including the incinerator scene where for a split second, you thought that this maybe could be the end. And then there's the goodbye scene, which is easily the best in the entire series, as we see Andy let go and pass ownership to a younger, and in my opinion, less interesting character in Bonnie. This scene struck me even more now as a parent, because I realized that Andy is not only saying goodbye to his toys, but he's saying goodbye to his childhood, letting go, that special time when the world was new and he watched cartoons and played with toys. And Woody, who's like a guardian to Andy, realizes that he's outgrown his usefulness. He's not needed anymore like he was a decade ago. He's saying goodbye as well. Those days in the bedroom are gone, and there's a bittersweet feeling. But at the same time, amidst this change and uncertainty, the toys always stay together and start a new beginning with Bonnie. And as much as I did enjoy Toy Story 4, if Toy Story ended here, I think it would have been perfect. So that's why I'm ranking Toy Story 3 as the best movie in the entire Toy Story series. So again, we all have a different ranking of these films because they are all so great. So what I'd like to have you do is share your favorite ranking. In the comment section below, type your ranking. Tell me about which movies are your favorite, or just share your number order. I'm hoping that we can all share which Toy Story movies we enjoyed the most. Thanks for watching, and if you like this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up.